Okay then, so we are here to talk about Tempest Sphere. It's the new order card that they've revealed, and let's get right into it. And we're going to look at how it affects all the different Aqua Force units that currently can benefit from it, and whether any of them are actually worth running with this new card. So first of all, let's start off with Tempest Sphere as the order. It's an order, the grade 1 order, so you can use this from grade 1 onwards. Its cost counterblast 1, you get to turn any card in your G-Zone face up, excluding ones such as, the progenitor dragons, as they cannot be flipped up. But then you get to look at the top 7 cards, search for 2 cards that don't have any effect at all, so this could be a trigger with no effects, a unit with no effects, or of course it could just be, well, that's generally it really. So you look at the top 7, look for 2 vanillas, add them to your hand, shuffle your deck. Okay, so of course, first thing we think of with this is that you can search out, your heals, which is going to be pretty useful, especially as G format, premium format goes on. Heals can be really good to add to your hand quickly and early on in the game. And generally, if you're going to run the new, the new vanilla card stuff that allows you to run just non-effect cards, this will also be useful in that, but we're going to mainly be focusing on if you're running just a full-fledged Aqua Force deck, with the general stuff that you would want to run with this. So in that scenario, you basically generally be adding heals to your hand, because you're probably going to be using both the new crits, the ones that can be discarded at strike cost, and the other crit that goes into soul to gain 10k power and draw a card. Anyhow, so let's look at the first card of this, okay then? So we've got Blue Wave Dragon, Dagger Master Drake. Okay, this is going to be a pretty quick summary of most of these cards, as a lot of them just don't work very well with it. So, Blue Wave Dragon, Dagger Master Draco Kid, it becomes active due to this card, it's a GB1 skill. It's generally not going to be that great. Well, of course it does let you, draw cards for Counterblast 1, so that's one of the bigger problems that we're going to face with a lot of these cards, is the Counterblast cost, as that will generally interrupt most of the usability of these things, because you're already playing the Counterblast to activate the order card, not just to pay the. So you're already going to be using that one Counterblast to perform the order, and as things go, it means that the cost can quickly get steep, especially with Aqua Force, which can be quite kind of Counterblast heavy with some of these units. So I would say that again, Forerunners in general are going to fall under the category of not as useful as the new Forerunners, which have the ability to also generate quick shields when ridden on second. So in general, I'm going to say that this card does generally, but while it does benefit, it's just not worth using, because of course you're going to have to, attack. You're almost impossible to get your 5th wave ability to gain a crit, and also, the counterblast cost. I mean, sure, you can draw a card, but why wait and risk the card being retired when you can just draw a card straight off the bat? The next up, we'll have Blue Wave Recruit Yoitos, I think that's how you pronounce it. Another GB1 skill, another counterblast cost again. Hooray, you can now, when your Blue Wave Vanguard attacks, put him into soul, counterblast 1, choose a rearguard and stand it gains 2k. Again, same issue with the other one, it's a counterblast cost, and also all it does is stand 1 rearguard. Sure, you can use it now anywhere between grade 1 and 3, or even on 4, because it becomes available for counterblast using the sphere, Tempest Sphere. It's just not worthwhile running over the current new modern ones, the new modern Forerunners. Alright, so next on, let's talk about one of the stand triggers, Dolphin Soldier for Leaping Windy Seas, GB1, so once again becomes unrestricted with just one use of Tempest Sphere. Soul Blast 1 when it attacks, if you have a Vanguard with Thavas in the name, puts in, it gains 7k power to the end of battle. Then at the end of the battle, draw a card, put this card in the bottom of your deck. This one, while it could be useful, if it mainly suffers from the issue of you have to require a Thavas unit in your Vanguard, and so by the time you have a Thavas unit, you're already grade 3, so you're mainly not going to be using most of the skill most of the time. And the best part about Tempest Sphere is the ability to gain access to the GB skills much earlier in the game than you normally would, while this still requires you to get to at least grade 3 before you can use it. So again, just not that great with this whole unit thing. Next we have Blue Wave Recruit Kosti, one of the only Aqua Force units I think that doesn't have GB, that also requires cards face up in the G zone, whereas it normally draws a card for Counterblast 1 and retiring itself. If you have a face up card with Blue Wave in your G zone, choose one of your rearguards and it gets 4k power as well. So this is once again very, very costly in terms of the thing. You have to use 2 counter blasts if you include the counter blast from the Tempest Sphere, and that's just not worthwhile for the extra 4k power that it's going to provide. And generally, just the new Forerunners are just stronger. Alright, so let's move on. So we've got Blue Wave Soldier, Twin Head Shark, another stand trigger with the GB1 skill that becomes unlocked. So it's retire this unit, choose any number of your rear guards, exchange any of their positions, and draw a card. Again, not great. It's an act skill, so it doesn't work at any other time other than during your main phase. While it replaces itself, which is nice, with the draw 1, it also just, when will you need to move your rear guards in a way that, you know, they wouldn't already have been moved by other things like Wheel Assault, which is much more effective at doing that, especially with the new standard Wheel Assault. So generally I don't think this is going to be worthwhile running either. Alright, so now I think one of the things that all clans are going to discover with Tempest Sphere is Direct Strike Brave Shooter. Another Generation Break 1 card, so it becomes unlocked instantly by Tempest Sphere. It has no cost other than putting itself into Soul, draws you a card, and then your Vanguard gets 10k power until the end of the battle when the Vanguard attacks. So this card in general is just going to be really, really useful. Like, all clans have access to this style of card, and that means that every clan will be able to use this. It's just going to be useful, I think, for the new Tempest Sphere, because you can now unlock the ability to use its skill much earlier in the game. So even on grade 1, just say, you know, you have a hand that doesn't have a grade 3 ride or grade 2 ride, and you've got Tempest Sphere, you use that early on. You can then throw down things like Direct Strike Brave Shooter to make it harder for them to guard, but also be able to cycle through your deck faster by placing him into Soul and drawing an extra card. It might benefit other clans more than some clans more than others, such as clans that like to Soul Charge a lot, because it means you can start Soul Charging earlier in the game and drawing off the skill. It also means that your attacks are going to hit more heavily. Alright, so next up we're going to have a Forerunner again, Kelpie Rider Metros. This one suffers from the same sort of problem as the Dolphin stand, of it's once again a GB1, third battle or more of the turn, place itself in Soul. If you have a grade 3 or grade 2 Vanguard with Thavas in its name, pay the cost, call the Thavas from deck, bounce to hand at the end of the turn. Generally just not that great, because it once again requires you to be on grade 3, and Tempest Sphere is more useful when you're allowing yourself to access things on lower grades. So this once again has to wait for you to have a Thavas, and at that point I'm not sure it's worth running compared to the other ones, because it can be retired during that time by certain decks such as Kagero, and it's just not worthwhile overall compared to just drawing one and also having the option to get a quick shield going second. Then we have Harpoon Draco Kid. It's just a power generator, 4th wave of the turn, gains 4k power. I mean, if you're going to run this, why not run something else that's useful? Like any other unit that gains power. It's just it only becomes active during the 4th wave. 9k swing, yay. I mean, if you weren't running this as Forerunner for some reason, because that is always one of the options for Forerunners, you know, you're already wasting spots in your deck with this card, as well as Tempest Sphere. Tempest Sphere will be taking up some of the spots in your deck available for other grades, so it will lower consistency. And just running any of these Forerunners on top, any of them, will just lower consistency further, to a point where the deck might not function very well and become rather clunky. Especially for a skill like this, it's just not very effective at all. So it's just a base power gain skill. Then we have Officer Cadet Alex Bors. He's a GB1. He basically swaps at the end of a battle. He swaps himself and another unit around. So sure, it could be useful on a Axel Circle, for example. But in general, I don't see really using this over things like Wheel Assault. Stand triggers generally aren't that helpful in Aqua Force at the current point in time. But again, I'd say this card isn't worth running over just crits in general. And other cards just do its job better than it does. Next we have Officer Cadet Andri, personally one of an old favourite of mine. But once again, it's a Forerunner. It's got a high counter blast cost. Puts itself in Soul. One of your rogue gets to restand. And it gets 2k power at the end of the battle it attacked. Generally, while I like the card, it's just still not worth running over the new Forerunners. You might be able to run it in your deck as an extra card that you want to run. But again, it risks throwing off the balance of the deck, because, as I said before, you're running Tempest Sphere, which is already taking up spots in the deck. So while this card does become unlocked, it's high cost and not much space in the deck to perform it. Finally, we have Officer Cadet Cyril, another Forerunner, which is just a GB1, Soul Blast 1. When the unit attacks, if it's third battle of the turn or more, pay the cost, it gets 10k pound to the end of battle, so it's just a heavy swinger. This one's, again, one of the more viable ideas, but yet still not viable due to just better options in the standard Forerunners. While of course it does become a 15k swing, you can run multiple other cards that become a 15k swing on the third or higher on the third battle of turn that won't clog up your consistency. Anyhow, let's move on to the grade 1s now. Okay, so we'll start off with the Battle Siren Melania. Again, she suffers a problem of having to have Davos on your grade 3 on your Vanguard circle already, and generally that means you have to wait to grade 3. She has a counterblast cost. She gets to draw a card, which is good, and gets power, which is nice. The third battle of turn or more as a GB1 skill, but it's just not worthwhile considering you have to wait to Davos to actually start using her skills. Battle Siren Orthia, another GB1, allows you to restand a unit and minus at 5k power at a cost, along with the Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1 cost to use her skill. Generally, while I like the card again, it's just very, very slow and very high cost. If you're using Tempest Sphere, of course, as I said, you've used that Counterblast already. So for the Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, that's a very heavy cost, and there's not many units early on in the game that can really do much after losing 5k power, other than potentially things like Coral Assault, so maybe you could use it with that. So I'd say this is almost usable with Tempest Sphere. Then we have Battle Siren Pantea, GB1, first attack or second attack, she gains 5k power swinging at Vanguard, so for Counterblast 1. Generally, again, just another power booster, generic. Generally, just not that great. You wouldn't really be running it, looking to run this. Yeah, as the counterblast cost is too large, and there are better options. As stuff like Stormrider Nikolos can also hit that 11k base on its swing, and it doesn't have to be restricted to, a certain swing in the turn. Next, we have Battle Siren Stacia. Alright, so Generation Break 1, during your turn, unit gets continuous, it can attack from the back row, and also when it does, it also gains 3k power. Which is actually, this is one of the more usable cards, even though it's a 6k base, it jumps itself up to 9k base. This could be used for some sort of potential early rush strategy, though again, it's reliant very much on the Tempest Sphere, which is a problem, really, as it doesn't do much outside of having that Tempest Sphere. Early game, because once your opponent goes past that 9k boundary, it's not really going to be hitting many things. There aren't many current units that we're using that gain power outside of striding. Next we'll have the original Blue Wave Shield General Yorgos, who's actually a Sentinel, with the GB skill of being able to bind itself face up from the drop zone, and allowing a Blue Wave unit to attack from the back row to the end of turn. Again, it's one of those skills that, I guess you can use if you want to rush hard in a Blue Wave deck, though Blue Wave is still currently suffering from multiple other issues that would stop you really from thinking about really using that subclan within Aqua Force, as they're just not that great. Unfortunately, at the moment, they have some powerful units, but just not a very good early game, unfortunately. Anyhow, let's move along. We have Blue Wave Soldier Scope Sailor, Soul Blast 1, return this unit to your hand. When your Vanguard Blue Wave attacks, when your Vanguard Blue Wave stands, you may pay the cost, and one of your units gets 4k power until the end of the turn. While yes, return to hand is always good, it has the requirement of your Blue Wave Vanguard restanding. There aren't any grade 2 or grade 1 Blue Wave Vanguards that will actually restand by themselves, so this effect doesn't really come in during the game. So in general, I'd say this is just another one of those effects that could be better if it had different requirements, as bounce to hand can be useful, but again, you'd be better off with Valkyria's Oath. Valkyria's Oath is a bounce to hand option because she doesn't cost anything, and while she doesn't give the power, she swings for a high number. Moving on, we've got Dragon Rider Dinos. For his Generation Break 1 skill, he's first or fourth battle of the turn. When it boosts, If you have a Vanguard of Thavas in your name, you may pay the cost. If you do, opponent chooses one of his or her rear cards and retires it. So once again, it's restricted to actually having a Thavas, which is only grade 3 option at the current moment, as there are no grade 2 or grade 1 Thavas units. So again, it's restricted by that, and therefore kind of defeats the purpose of running Tempest Sphere, outside of maybe that grade 3 rush. And even then, there are better cards options for retiring, such as Battle Siren Parthenia. So next we'll have Gundiver Draco Kid. Simply when it boosts the Vanguard for Generation Break 1 skill, it gets an extra 4k into the end of battle, so it just becomes a 10k booster. Not much to say about this one, generally just not that great. No reason to run this. 5k shield rather than a 10k standard shield that you get from multiple other cards that can get higher than 10k power when boosting in the Aqua Force clan currently. So moving along. Kelpie Rider Pool, 3rd battle or more. When this unit attacks or boosts, pay the cost, choose 2 of your units, they get 2k power until the end of turn, Soul Blast 1. Alright, so generally, again, it's just too small of a number to be significant in this scenario. Though it is one of those few skills that actually do work while being played. I just don't believe that the card has what it takes to really make an indent, again, because it's once again you're sacrificing a bit of guard value, and there is just generally better cards that can get that 4k worth of power that it would have added onto the field much simpler. Next we have Kelpie Rider Valas, another Sentinel. It's one of the old Quintet walls. Generally just not that great of a unit. Wave first time only. When it boosts, it gets 2k power to the end of the battle, so that would imply being placing this Sentinel on the field and it becomes an 8k booster. Woohoo! Just not very good at all. Not worth running at all. Next we have Mind Eye Sailor. 3rd battle of the turn or more. When it attacks, you may pay the cost, and if you do, for Soul Blast 1, 10k power until the end of the battle, so it becomes a 17k base. So it's effectively a retrain of Cyril, but as a grade 1. So if you were going to play something along these lines, you would play Mind Eye Sailor, but once again, it does it all while its cost isn't bad for the clan, as we do have a lot of soul options, and generally it doesn't counter blast. The question would come down to, is this worth running over other units that can also gain power? I'm not sure on that one. It might be fun to mess around with, but I generally don't think I can't see myself running this at any point, as the 17k just ain't that great. Then we have Dispatch Mission Seagull Sailor. 4th time or more, this ability gets unlocked, GB1. At the end of battle that it boosted, returns to hand, so it requires you to get to fourth wave, and it has another skill as well. But in general, I would say that it's effectively just similar once again to Valkyria's Oath Dine, and I'd probably just run her over it because of the 10k shield value that she has. So she is more useful in hand than this unit is. While he does have the on play skill, choosing a unit and giving an extra 3k power, I still believe that Dine is just more valuable in terms of skill, in terms of shield value, because putting her in hand holds an extra 5k shield than putting Dispatch Mission Seagull Soldier in hand. Next we'll talk about Railgun Assault. GB1, when it attacks Vanguard, this gets 3k power to the end of turn. So yeah, it's just a 10k base swing, so why would you run this over something else? I don't know, maybe you have special reasons. They don't exist for me. It's just not a very good card. I hope this card gets a reprint in Standard though, as it's a pretty badass looking card. Next we have Violent Shooter. Now this is one that I feel like you could make quite an interesting deck out of. With the Soul Blast cost on the 1st or 2nd battle of the turn, when it attacks it gives itself 2k power. So that's the top 4 cards of the deck. Choose one with a wave ability among them, call it to R that this unit's on, and then put the rest on the bottom of the deck in any order. If you called a card, you also put this card on the bottom of your deck. So effectively it's a card that attacks, then replaces itself. So generally it can be, I'd say I quite like this card. It's part of a series. We'll see the other parts of that series later down the line as we get there. But I like Violent Shooter. I think you could make a deck around this card using using Tempest Sphere, but at the same time I feel like it still wouldn't be quite as strong, but it might be a little bit of fun to have. It would definitely not be as strong as current modern Aqua Force decks with the standard cards involved, but it would certainly be a little bit of fun to have. Might do that with Team Burst at some point, we'll see. And then finally, for the grade 1s, we have Whirlwind Brave Shooter for GB1 skill, Soul Blast 1. When this unit attacks its third battle of the turn or more, you may pay the cost. If you do, until the end of the battle, this unit gets 5k power. And when this unit's attack hits a Vanguard, choose a card from damage zone, turn it face up. So basically, it's a counter charger on hit counter charger that gains 5k power. So it becomes a 12k base grade 1 when it's attacked. So it's okay. Again, it's similar to Mind Eye Sailor, except with instead of such high power, you get the chance to counter charge. So again, maybe runnable, but at the same time, it's a question of do you have space within your grade 1 slots that it would fit into? Currently for me, that'd probably be a no, but maybe I'd experiment with it a little. Okay, so we'll move on to the grade 2s next. We have Battle Siren Adelaide. Once again, this is a GB1, Canal Blast 1, Soul Blast 1, so very heavy costs. When placed in R, if you have a unit with Davos in the name, pay the cost, and if you do, it gets 2k power, and at the end of the battle, it attacks the Vanguard, stand itself. So it's a 11k multi-attacker, which used to be decent enough, but with a high cost value onto the top of Tempest Sphere and the requirement of having a grade 3 Davos already, I highly doubt that this card will see much use outside of very specific builds aiming to emulate older feeling of playing the deck of Davos. Alright, so I just don't think this is going to be run with a new Tempest Sphere outside of that. It's not viable. It doesn't become viable due to Tempest Sphere. Battle Siren Janka, GB1, so unlocked by Tempest Sphere straight away. Third wave or more. Soul Blast 1, when it attacks Vanguard, if you have a Vanguard with Davos, pay the cost, it gets 4k for every card with wave ability other than itself. Once again, while it could stack power significantly in the right builds, it's just requirement of that grade 3 Davos again. Just doesn't make it very worthwhile running. I would say it's just a power stacker, so it goes into that sort of group of it's a power stacker but not significantly enough or early enough. It isn't usable during the grade 2 turn due to the Davos restriction, so it's just not worthwhile running. Next we'll move on to Battle Siren Nicoletta, GB1. Wave second time or more when this unit's attack hits a Vanguard, draw a card. Now I think Nicoletta is actually one of the more interesting cards that I would like to think about running potentially, as it's a pressure based card. If it hits second turn, battle of the turn or more, you just draw a card. Potentially you can force your opponent to drop some more guard than normal. If maybe they're planning to take the hits, or else you plus off it. Then again, it still suffers from the fact that it's GB1, and therefore skill wouldn't really be active unless you hit Tempest Sphere, though I guess this is a theoretical case of what happens when you do hit Tempest Sphere. So I'd say this card does have some potential to be used. I don't think it's likely, but it's more potential than some of the other ones. Next we have Battle Siren Rode. GB1, when this unit attacks Vanguard, gets 3k power to the end of turn. Hooray! It's a 12k beat stick. So you may as well be running the 12k vanillas like Metal Gut Sailor here, as in general they're just going to be doing the same thing outside of being able to intercept without having the requirement of Tempest Sphere activation. And under Tempest Sphere, they would also potentially get 5k if you were running the new Cycloned. So I would say generally this card's not worth running as a power gainer. Battle Siren Sipla, another card that I very much enjoyed playing back in the day. It's a GB1, second or fourth battle of the turn. Second to fourth battle of the turn, my apologies. Counter Blast 1, if your Vanguard's Davos, when it attacks, it gains 3k power and you draw a card. It's one of those cards that would be a lot stronger without the Davos restriction, as your opponent wouldn't be able to block the draw like they can with something like Nicoletta. Generally, it's just the restriction of Davos and the heavy counterblast cost that would stop me from running this card. because once again it can't really be used outside of the Davos grade 3 turn. Next we have Blue Wave Marine General Gallius, the original version, with the once per turn skill GB1, Counterblast 1, choose a card with Blue Wave from your hand and discard it. When it attacks, if you've got a Blue Wave Vanguard, you may pay the cost, and if you do, till the end of the turn, this unit gets, when your Vanguard attacks, stand this unit, and it gets 2k power to the end of turn, and then if this was also the first battle of the turn, stand this unit. So it's a multiple restander, so it can restand twice in a turn under the right conditions. Maybe potentially see this card being used with this Tempest Sphere, but again it's a heavy cost with a counterblast, although it can potentially just result in a large number of swings. So I can see this card potentially actually being used with the new Blue Wave support. Well, not the new Blue Wave support, with the new Tempest Sphere, sorry, my apologies, there's no Blue Wave support. It doesn't support Blue Wave, it just supports Revan, which is a Blue Wave in the name. Anyhow, next we'll have Blue Wave Marine General Meddler, with the GB1 skill. If your Vanguard with Blue Wave in its card name, has Blue Wave in its card name, it can attack from the back row, and when it attacks Vanguard from the back row, it gains 3k power. This is a card that could become usable, similar to Gallius, in a Blue Wave centric deck due to Tempest Sphere, as it's costless. It becomes an 11k swing, which can attack from the back row, so if you're going to go into that grade 2 game, that could be quite strong under Tempest Sphere. Swinging from the back row, because you can have a grade 2 Vanguard with Blue Wave in the name, so that'll be quite effective. Generally I'd say yeah, and it's got the resist, so it can't be retired, so you can up the number of swings per turn, and all of them will hit even grade 2s with 10k base, so I'd say that's quite effective. So this is quite definitely a possibility with Tempest Sphere within a Blue Wave environment, although I still don't think Blue Wave have the materials or the abilities necessary to really perform well in the current meta game. Okay, so moving on, next we have High Tide Sniper, GB1, Soul Blast 1, when this unit attacks, if it is the third battle of the turn or more, Soul Blast 1 and gain 10k power. So this is like a better version of Shotgun Assault from the standard stuff under Tempest Sphere. That 10k power boost instead of an 8k power boost. I mean, it's worthwhile, but again, I'm not sure if I would look to run this card, as it's just a power booster with a mediocre power gain versus something like Coral Assault with a larger power gain and no cost, and doesn't have the requirement of having a Tempest Sphere used. Next we have Hydro Lance Tizanis, I think that's how it's pronounced, Tizanis. Yeah. GP1, when your Vanguard's drive check reveals a grade 3 card, stand this unit, and this unit gets 5k power until the end of the turn. So while it's costless, it requires you to drive check the grade 3, which is not likely to be happening in the grade 2 turn when it can first be used, so you can't really abuse it as much, unless you're using maybe, I don't know, Talwar Assault perhaps, somehow. Although I still don't believe that it would be worthwhile running, as it's too random and gacha to really, be effective. While the 5k power boost is nice and the free restand is nice, it still requires Tempest Sphere to start be working early game, and it's only really useful later on. Next we have Kelpie Rider Nikitas. It's got a GB skill of Counterblast 1. At the end of the battle it attacks, you may choose another rearguard with the wave ability and exchange position with this unit in a more wave centric build. I think this unit could be quite good under the new order, as I feel like most of the grade 2s are just generally better with the order than the grade 1s or 0s are. But again, it's a counterblast heavy cost and restriction to wave, which is generally not going to help the card itself. I do like the card though, but unfortunately I don't think it's going to be up to the snuff currently unless we get more wave units, which is very unlikely at the current moment. So let's move on. So next we have Magnum Assault, a card that counterblasts 1 at the end of battle. If it was boosted, pay the costs, and if you do, stand this unit against 2k power. Well, I think this card could be quite good under the effects of the new Tempest Sphere. It's once again a counterblast cost, but I think it's one of the more usable ones, as it restands itself and gives power to itself, allowing for multiple swings at a decent number. I quite like Magnum Assault as a card. I've missed playing him quite a bit now. So definitely very runnable. Next we have Marine General of Sonic Speed Nectarios, he as a unit is generally just he's very similar to a violence shooter, in the respects of he is once again a GB1, first or second battle of the turn, so +1, when it attacks gains power, 2k power, and looks top 4, calls a wave unit to the same circle that he was on at the end of battle and puts himself on the bottom of the deck. So once again, I think this could be played in a funny strategy, but I don't think it would be meta relevant, but it becomes switched on much earlier in the game. You can call units that are higher grade than your Vanguard with this skill and really put some pressure on your opponent, just under the Tempest sphere, so that could be quite fun. Next we have Saberflow Sailor. Now this is one of the units I was more interested in, as she is GB1. At the end of the battle, they attacked Vanguard. If it's the 4th battle of the turn or more, retire this unit, and if you do, draw 2 cards. So straight up, just draw 2. And I think she could be used quite effectively with Tempest Sphere. If you have such a setup such as Tidal Assault as one of your rear guards, you can definitely get to that 4th attack of the turn. It can help you with the grade 2 game, and definitely help you stall out your game a bit longer and allow you to draw cards more quickly. Although she has an 8k base, I think it is well worthwhile for the double draw, so maybe worthwhile thinking about with Tempest Sphere. Finally, for the grade 2 lineup, we have Terranite Timos, GB1, wave second time or more. When this unit attacks the Vanguard, choose up to one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it. Yeah, so generally this is one of those on-hit pressure skills. I would say it's a bit worse than Battle Siren Nicoletta from earlier, as instead of drawing a card, you just retire one of your opponent's rear guards on hit. Generally, I wouldn't see this being run. As cool as his art is, I really wish he was on a stronger card, really. But yeah, so I wouldn't say Terranite Timos is worth running currently. So let's move on to the grade 3s. So we'll start off with Battery Boom Dragon, GB1. When this unit attacks the Vanguard, you can get 6k power until the end of the turn. And at the end of the battle, this unit attacks the Vanguard. If it's the first battle of the turn, choose another one of your rear guards, same column, and exchange position with this unit. The main thing being the GB1 unlocks the 6k power when it attacks, and that's only on Vanguard Circle, while the other skill only works on Rearguard Circle. So once again, it's just a generic power booster. Hooray for your 16k swing on grade 3 ride. I don't think this card has any significant difference brought to it by Tempest Sphere outside of playing a very, very off-meta scenario. Blue Storm Supreme Dragon Lordly Maelstrom. It's a GB2 skill. To counterblast one at the end of the turn. If you attack 4 or more times this turn, you can draw a card. Your opponent chooses one of his rear guards and retires it. Again, I don't think this card's worthwhile. At least it's not worthwhilely affected by Tempest Sphere, as the unit itself requires GB2, which a lot of the grade 3s will do. And because of that, you'd need to activate Tempest Sphere twice, or use other Grey Elemental cards that have been released in the new Premium Collection 2 set. It's just not worth. It doesn't give a significant boost to this card, because it would require 3 counterblasts to really effectively use this, and by that time you wouldn't have taken that much damage, or there are better cards to ride out currently. Next we have Blue Wave Angerboil Dragon, GB2 once again, so you need to activate 2 Tempest Spheres. Wave second time only. When it attacks a Vanguard, it gets 5k. Choose up to one of your rear guards, stand, and it gets 10k until the end of turn. While it could be exceptionally powerful on that second ride, on that first ride into grade 3, there's still just better options, I believe, for the car for grade 3 rides. And considering you have to run Tempest Sphere to use it twice to actually get this effect online, although it's free, it's just not quite worthwhile in the escalation of things. Next we have Blue Wave Dragon, Arsenal Fleet Dragon. I quite like this card. It's an older boy from the Blue Waves. It's GB1, counterblast 1 with Blue Wave in name. When it attacks, you will pay the cost. If you do, to the end of turn it gets 4k, and if it's the second battle that's its turn, stand itself. Okay, so that's on R, so, and also has a drop zone effect, but that's not affected by the GB, so it becomes a restand in grade 3, so potentially you can use this on your grade 3 ride, but again, it's just once you hit grade 3 rides, is it really as worthwhile running these cards over standard cards? I don't think so much. Next we have Supreme Rule of Storm Thavas. Once again, GB2, first or fourth battle of the turn. Cannon Blast 1, end of the battle it attacks, pay the cost and stand this unit. Once again, it's GB2, requiring 2 Tempest Sphere activations, therefore making it very unlikely to be able to occur. And also the cost would add up to Counter Blast 3, which is also a high cost to be paying for such a skill. Although restanding is cool, it's just not that great as rearguard abilities go, as its other abilities, a stride ability. Well, at least it is a good rearguard ability, it's just not good for the cost it would require to be doing this before striding. Next we have One Who's Surpassed the Storm Thavas, which has the Vanguard ability of GB2. When it attacks, if it's the fourth battle of the turn, it gets an extra critical and your opponent cannot call grade 0s from hand to guard. This is one of those skills that, and once again, it's GB2, so 2 Tempest Spheres, though it is free, and your opponent, the grade 0s, will be making up the main majority of high guard values. You need to have a significantly large booster to force your opponent to drop more cards from hand, but while that would be an effective use of that, I don't feel like it would be effective enough to really be worthwhile running, and it requires too much setup to actually pull off for the effective gains. Next we have Jockey of the Great Sea Skyros, another old favourite of mine. GB1, all your units on the front row get resist, which is generally just nice, as you know, if you're playing against a deck like Kagero, suddenly they lose some of the ability to retire some of your units if they're selectively retiring them, and that can be nice if it's turned on the first ride, but again I think there are better ride targets for your first ride, although he does gain the skills to help you get more grade 3 units to hand. I believe there are just better targets than Skyros in the current meta. Next we have Marine General of Twin Bullets Kritas with his rearguard skill, third wave only, Generation Break 2 again, so it only works under 2 activations of the new order card. Cannon Blast 1, when your Vanguard attacks, you may pay the cost. If you stand this unit, if your Vanguard that attacked had the wave ability, it gains 2k power. Generally just a pretty mess skill in terms of things. I mean, it does have the ability to search for a wave ability when placed, so that can be used, but in general that only works on Vanguard's place, whereas the other skill is rearguard placed. So I would say this card is once again just not worthwhile unless you bring in maybe a cheesy wave variant of the deck, and yeah, I don't think it's going to be competitively viable even under the order card. Next we'll have a look at the next one. We have Marine General of the Wave Slicing Sword, Max. At the end of the battle, GB1, Cannon Blast 1, at the end of the battle that attacked Vanguard. If it's a third battle of the turn, this works on Vanguard or Rearguard. You may pay the cost, and if you do, choose one of your Rearguards, it gets 2k power, and choose 2 of your units and swap their positions. So it's like a better version. It's like a version of Wheel Assault once again. Though while it does work on Vanguard or Rearguard, it's a grade 3. The skill isn't powerful enough to really be considered as viable. There are better standard cards than this one. Has grade 3 rides, and once again on grade 3 it's just not worthwhile. So we'll move on. So we next have Strike Head Dragon, GB1. When your rearguard attacks a Vanguard, if the third battle of the turn or more, this unit gets 3k. That unit gets 3k into the end of the power. So continuously giving power. It's a bit like the old Victor cards, such as I think it's Winning Champ Victor, giving the 5k every attack, every time they restand. Generally just not that great, because to get this for that far, you don't have any Axel circles if you're riding Strike Head Dragon. I'd just say it's just not generally great under the Generation Break, although I do like the art of Strike Head. It's just not worthwhile running. Next we have Stragglefin Dragon. Do I need to say much about this? Generation Break 1, Vanguard or Rearguard. When it attacks Vanguard, this unit gets 4k until the end of the battle. Hooray, 14k base on the swing. And when it hits on rear guard, 4th time only. Counterblast 1 standard stuff. I have nothing else to say about this one. If you can't tell that this one's just not worthwhile, then I don't know. Next we'll have Titan of the Trench Patrol. Once again, just like Violent Shooter, it's... Oh, I'm gonna get so demonetized for that. Even if I'm not even monetized to begin with. But Titan of the Trench Patrol, one of my all-time favourite grade 3s for Aqua Force. Once again, GB1, wave 1st or 2nd time, Soul Blast 1 when it attacks, gains 2k, so it can hit that 13k base. Hooray. Look top 4, search for one with wave among it, call it to R that it's on and put it on the bottom of the deck at the end of battle. Once again, this card can actually be quite fun to use, especially with the deck built specifically to it. I definitely will build a janky deck like that with the new order card. I'm looking forward to messing around with them, though I wouldn't say it's competitively viable. It certainly could be a lot of fun. Alright, so we'll move on to the grade 4s now. We'll start with some of the more sub-clan based grade 4s. So we'll start with Blue Storm, Breaking Dragon, Engulf, Maelstrom. The way that this unit is affected by the new card, the way that this unit is affected by the new order card is that it allows you to speed up the number of cards you have face up in your G zone with Maelstrom in its name, and therefore allowing you to potentially use its bonus 5k power and crit skill at the beginning on the first ride. So maybe you can pack a bigger punch with this unit. Again, I don't think it's significantly affected by it, but it's always a thought if you're going for a Maelstrom turbo build. Next in the Maelstrom line is the Blue Storm Martial Dragon, Admiral Maelstrom. Rarely ever see this guy pulled out ever now because it's an older on-hit effect, and while I do miss on-hit effects, they generally just don't have power warranting for the fact they have to hit. So it's a Counterblast 1, choose a card from your G zone, turn it face up. When it hits the Vanguard, 4th battle of the turn or more, if you have a heart card, you draw a card, and then you choose 3 of your opponent's rear guards, and for each rear guard, your opponent chooses a rear guard among each one of them for each face up Blue Storm, Martial Dragon, Admiral Maelstrom in your G zone and retires them, so you can turbo out the ability to retire more units. So you retire 2 instead of 1 on the first ride if you ever go into this guy, which I highly doubt. Though then again, won't judge you if you do choose to go into him. He does look pretty damn awesome, but is terrible at the same time. Sad times. Next up we have a Blue Wave unit, which is the Blue Wave Martial Dragon, Flood Hazard Dragon. With the general thing being that he has a GB3 ability to get a drive +1 and all your rear guards in the front row with Blue Waving them get plus 2k power, so you can get to that GB3 faster with the new unit, allowing you to get it potentially on the first ride or the second ride much more easily than you did previously. First ride generally being the one that would be optimal. And along with that, we have Blue Wave Martial Dragon Tetra Boil Dragon, which is a GB2 skill. So normally you cannot use this card on the first ride for its main skill, but now with the new Tempest Sphere, you now do have the potential to use this ability first ride, allowing you to get a restanding Vanguard straight off the bat with twin drive instead of triple drive. But hey, 2 attack that equals 4, I think. Can I do maths? I'm not sure. But yeah, so he's now more usable than he was in terms of a first ride, if you don't want to go into Flood Hazard straight off the bat. Next up in the line of named subclans, we have Storm Dominator Commander Thavas. With his GB's free skill becoming accessible on first ride for the 4th battle of the turn. When your unit attacks a Vanguard, choose up to 3 of your opponent's rear guards. Your opponent chooses 1 of the rear card among them and retires them. So yeah, you get access to that. Which can be nice, which can be nice to have, though I don't recommend running him at the current moment, as he is just inferior in a lot of ways to many of the other strides that we currently have access to, especially with the potential that we may have in the premium collection coming up. So next we have Storm of Lament, Wailing Thavas. Once again, this is one that becomes more accessible due to the new card than anything else, as you can hit GB2 or GB3 a little bit faster than normal. With the help of G-Guards and stuff, so he just becomes more accessible than he was previously. Very situational card though. Right, so we'll move on to some of the G guards as well. So we have Blue Wave Armor General Galphilia. Hooray! You can now turn her face up with the skill of the Tempest Sphere for Count Blast 1. And then you can Soul Blast 1 to turn her face down and Counter Charge 1. Or unlock a locked card. But generally, if you're using that skill of Tempest Sphere, you might be wasting the purpose of Tempest Sphere. But I don't know, if you really want to Soul Blast, I guess, go for it. And then the other card we have is Guard Leader of Sky and Water, Iohannes. GB1 skill, so that becomes unlined straight away if you use the effect of Tempest Sphere. So you can instantly use your most powerful G guard that allows you to gain resist and units cannot be hit, which is rather useful, and it can hit the highest guard numbers that any Aqua Force G guard reaches. Even though it's not that high usually, it's just nice to be able to have this straight away rather than having to drop a G guard first and then drop him in separate battles, so you'll be able to access him straight off. So next we'll move on to the more generic strides that I'm more excited for things. So first off, my favorite unit in the entire game, Marine General of Heavenly Silk, Lambros. He's now switched on by Tempest Sphere to be giving the 10k power bonus on the first stride, which I absolutely adore, and now becomes much stronger as a unit first stride option in general due to Tempest Sphere. Next we'll move on to Marshal General Sergeant C's Alexandros. Same sort of stick, he becomes stronger, you get an extra 5k because there's one more G unit face up, though he does have the counterblast cost while Lambros is more free, no cost. But Alexandros lets you use the second or third wave swing to activate his ability to stand rear guard, and you also get the 10k power bonus instead of the 5k on first stride, which generally just makes it better. Next in line though we have Torrent of Determination, Valios Revive, and I think this is one of the cards that benefits most out of all the Aqua Force units from Tempest Sphere, as you now switch on his ability to lock your opponent at 11k. You can also call up to 4 units on the first stride now instead of 2, and draw 4 cards. Generally just all round just very good. You could definitely make a Valios Revive rush deck designed to just try and swing as hard and fast as you can. Now your opponent is locked at 11k on your first stride rather than your second stride, or you happen to be lucky in getting a G guard. So in general, I think Valios Revive can be very, very effective with the new card and one of the best benefits. So finally we're going to move on to the last two, which are more meant to be end game finishers, though I feel like they're a bit of a joke, one of them at least. So we have Blue Swell Martial Dragon Last Twister Dragon, which is Aqua Force's GB8. It has the most amazing artwork and just the most skill of all of the cards in Aqua Force. Generally, yeah, it's just you get to GB8 slightly faster just because you're turning over more units in your G zone. That's about all I can say for it. Again, maybe if you're making a wave-centric build due to this new card, maybe it's a bit more useful as it does work better with the wave functionality than normal units. But yeah, and by the way, yes, that is a building in the bottom right of the picture in size comparison for the large dragon in the background. And finally, you've got Megiddo. This means you can generally just go into Megiddo a hell of a lot faster. You can effectively, if you're going for a strategy that involves just finishing your opponent off instantaneously, this is definitely going to benefit Grand Blue probably more than us, as it can hit Megiddo a lot faster. But you will have the ability to just stride this after one. You'll be able to play your Tempest Sphere and play one stride, and then the next stride you'll be able to go into your ultimate stride for the Megiddo stride. So in general, I'd say it's looking pretty effective. It's not exactly great, as you do Counterblast 1 for the cost of Tempest Sphere, and Megiddo does require you to actually live that long, but in general it's better than nothing, especially with the enhanced chance of having G guards due to the effects of the Tempest Sphere, allowing you to fish for heals to your hand. Anyhow, I think that is generally the gist of all the cards that I could find that were affected by the changes with the Aqua Force units. So I hope I didn't miss any. If you do notice I missed one or two, please write them down in the comments so other people can see them, if anyone does see them ever. But yeah, so that'll be everything for today. Thank you for watching. If you did, I hope you liked the analysis of everything. I mean, I wouldn't really call it analysis, but I hope you enjoyed at least looking at the list of cards we do have available that Tempest Sphere can affect. So thank you very much for watching. See you next time.